The morning sun streamed through Stanford's Mitchell Auditorium windows, casting prismatic patterns that reminded me of my first quantum interference experiments. I'd arrived 2 hours early, partly from habit, decades of pre-dawn lab work, and partly to watch my daughter Sarah prep for her first semester as an assistant professor. My worn jeans and favorite old MIT sweatshirt felt comfortable, though Sarah had begged me to dress more noble-ish. But after 30 years of fighting to be taken seriously in physics, I'd earned the right to prioritize comfort over appearances. "Excuse me." A sharp voice cut through my mathematical musings. The cleaning staff was supposed to be done an hour ago. Amanda Wright, the symposium coordinator, clipped toward me in designer heels that probably cost more than my first year's lab budget. "The Nobel laureate will be here in 2 hours," she continued, thrusting a vacuum cleaner at me. "We need this place immaculate, and please change into a proper custodial uniform before the guests arrive." I accepted the vacuum, curiosity piqued. In my experience, the most interesting data often came from unexpected variables. "The Nobel laureate must be quite particular about cleanliness," I observed mildly. "Dr. Patel is the most important speaker we've had all year," Amanda declared, checking her tablet. "First woman of color to win for physics, revolutionize quantum computation theory. We can't have anything less than perfection." "Interesting," I said, examining the vacuum's motor housing. "Actually, this model's frequency would interfere with the quantum demonstration equipment being set up." Amanda's head snapped up. "How would you know about—" "Mom." Sarah's voice echoed from the doorway. "I thought we agreed you'd wear the suit." Amanda's tablet clattered to the floor. "Mom," she squeaked. "But that would mean you're—" "Dr. Maya Patel," I confirmed, extending my hand. "Though I'm actually more concerned about this vacuum's potential interference with the quantum demonstration than my outfit." The coordinator's face cycled through several quantum states of its own, finally settling on mortified horror. Dr. Patel, Your Honor, I didn't." "Mom likes to arrive early to check the equipment," Sarah explained, shooting me the same exasperated look she'd given me since childhood, though she promised to dress appropriately. "Quantum mechanics doesn't care what I'm wearing," I pointed out, already moving toward the demonstration setup. "But these frequency patterns could disrupt the entire presentation." I'll get facilities to delay the cleaning," Amanda stammered, backing away. "I'm so terribly sorry, Dr. Patel. If I'd known." "But that's rather the point, isn't it?" I called after her, retreating form. "We make assumptions based on appearance, yet particles don't care about human prejudices. Quantum superposition exists regardless of who observes it." Sarah sighed, helping me examine the equipment. "You could have told her who you were immediately, and miss a chance to observe human behavior in its natural state. Besides, she provided an excellent opening for today's lecture on unconscious bias in scientific institutions." The auditorium doors burst open as Professor Chen, the department head, rushed in. "Dr. Patel, we had a welcome reception planned. Why didn't you check in at the VIP entrance?" "The service entrance provided valuable research data," I replied, adjusting a laser array. "Did you know your cleaning equipment could potentially disrupt quantum measurements?" What?" He blinked, then turned to Sarah. "Dr. Patel Jum, your mother is—" "Brilliant and impossible," Sarah finished. "Yes, I know. I grew up with her running physics experiments during breakfast." "The toast-based quantum tunnel demonstration was very effective," I reminded her. "You got an A+ on that science fair project." More faculty members were filtering in, their expressions shifting from dismissal to recognition as they spotted Sarah. The whispers started. "That's Dr. Patel, Nobel laureate, quantum computing breakthrough." "We have a special podium prepared," Professor Chen said anxiously, "and a proper lab coat if you prefer." "This sweatshirt has seen me through 3 major breakthroughs," I replied. "I think it's earned its place in quantum history. Now about these interference patterns." The next hour passed in a blur of technical adjustments and awkward apologies. Amanda reappeared with coffee, then fled when I attempted to discuss the quantum properties of heat distribution in liquid systems. Several professors who'd earlier ignored my presence now hovered nearby, desperately trying to join the conversation. "Your mother is quite unique," I overheard one telling Sarah. "She says physics taught her that observation changes outcomes," Sarah replied. "So she likes to control when people realize they're being observed." By the time the auditorium began filling with students and faculty, word had spread about the morning's mistaken identity. I noticed Amanda had disappeared completely, though she left a handwritten apology note that included 3 references to my groundbreaking work in quantum decoherence. "Ready for your introduction?" Sarah asked, straightening my sweatshirt's collar in a gesture that reminded me of her grandmother, another woman who'd broken barriers in her field. "Almost," I said, pulling out my old notebook, the same one where I'd first sketched the quantum computations that would eventually win the Nobel. "I'm adding a new opening section about institutional assumptions and their effect on scientific observation, using this morning as a case study. The best data comes from real-world experiments," I smiled. "Besides, they're all expecting a lecture on quantum mechanics. Why not show them how human behavior operates in superposition states of its own?" Sarah groaned, but I saw the proud glint in her eyes. The same look I'd given her when she'd announced she was following me into physics, determined to break down even more barriers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Professor Chen's voice boomed through the packed auditorium. "Please welcome our distinguished speaker, Nobel laureate in physics, Dr. Maya Patel." I stepped onto the stage, still carrying the vacuum cleaner handle. "Before we discuss quantum mechanics," I began, "let's examine another type of uncertainty principle, the one that assumes a woman in casual clothes must be the cleaning staff." The auditorium buzzed with uncomfortable recognition as I placed the vacuum cleaner prominently on the podium. In the front row, Amanda Wright seemed to be trying to achieve quantum tunneling through her seat. "Quantum mechanics teaches us that the act of observation changes the outcome," I continued, pulling up my first slide, a split image of myself in cleaning clothes beside one in full academic regalia receiving the Nobel. "Similarly, human observation is tainted by our preconceptions. When you saw me this morning, which state did you collapse my wave function into?" Sarah, standing at the side of the stage, covered her face, but I caught her suppressed smile. She'd seen me turn uncomfortable moments into teaching opportunities her entire life. "Now consider this paradox." I clicked to the next slide, showing the mathematical equation that had earned me the Nobel Prize. When I first proposed this solution, it was rejected by 3 major journals. The same equation, when resubmitted under my married name, Dr. Patel, with no gender indicators, was accepted within 2 weeks. The audience shifted uneasily. Several senior faculty members suddenly became very interested in their notepads. The reviewer's notes were particularly illuminating, I continued. The first submission was deemed ambitious but unsophisticated. The second was brilliant and groundbreaking. The only variable that changed was the observer's perception. Professor Chen, who'd been one of those original reviewers, though he didn't know I knew, tugged at his collar. "But this isn't about assigning blame," I assured them, moving to the quantum demonstration setup. "It's about understanding how observation affects reality, both in quantum mechanics and human interaction. Watch this." I activated the laser array, creating a complex interference pattern on the screen. When we observe quantum particles, they behave differently. When humans know they're being observed, they also behave differently. This morning, I conducted a social experiment parallel to this quantum one. In the back row, a student raised her hand. "Dr. Patel, are you saying you deliberately didn't correct people's assumptions?" "Exactly," I smiled. "I wanted to observe behavior in its natural state, unaffected by the knowledge of being watched. Just as these particles create their natural interference pattern only when we're not measuring them directly." "But that's," Amanda finally found her voice, "that's rather unfair to those of us who made incorrect assumptions." "Is it?" I adjusted the laser's frequency. "Or is it unfair that after 30 years of publications, a Nobel Prize, and countless contributions to quantum theory, I'm still immediately categorized as cleaning staff based on appearance and ethnicity?" The silence was profound. I let it stretch, just as I'd learned to let quantum calculations run their full course. "Here's another paradox," I continued. "This morning, multiple people lectured others about my achievements without recognizing me. What does that tell us about the gap between intellectual understanding of bias and its practical application?" Sarah stepped forward right on cue, carrying my original notebook. "Mom's been documenting these interactions for decades. They're actually part of a larger study on institutional bias in scientific fields. A study which," I added, "has produced some fascinating correlations with quantum behavior. For instance, just as particles can exist in multiple states until observed, people often hold multiple contradictory beliefs until confronted with their own actions. I clicked to a new slide showing statistical data. Over 30 years, I've documented 847 incidents of being mistaken for support staff at academic institutions. The frequency didn't decrease after winning the Nobel Prize. If anything, it increased due to more speaking engagements. Professor Chen finally spoke up. Dr. Patel, what can we do to address this quantum state of bias? First, we acknowledge that good intentions aren't enough. I replied, switching off the laser array. Just as quantum computing required us to completely rethink classical computing assumptions, addressing bias requires us to completely rethink our institutional assumptions. I picked up the vacuum cleaner again. This morning, no one questioned whether a woman in casual clothes belonged in this auditorium. The assumption wasn't just about what I was, but about what I couldn't be. But you're Dr. Maya Patel, Amanda protested. You're famous. Am I? Or am I a quantum superposition of identities? Nobel laureate, mother, scientist, immigrant's daughter, and yes, someone who's not afraid to clean an auditorium if needed. The question is, why did you observe only one of those possible states? The rest of the lecture wove between quantum mechanics and social commentary, demonstrating how the principles of uncertainty and observation applied to both particles and people. By the end, even Amanda was taking notes. In conclusion, I said, gathering my materials, quantum mechanics teaches us that reality is more complex than our classical observations suggest. Perhaps it's time we apply that lesson to how we'd observe each other. The applause was thunderous, though I noticed it held a different quality than usual, less automatic appreciation, more uncomfortable self-reflection. As students filed out, many stopped to apologize for their earlier assumptions. I waved them off with a smile. Don't apologize. Learn. And next time you see someone who doesn't fit your expected pattern, remember that particles don't fit our classical patterns either. Mom, Sarah approached with Professor Chen. The department would like to offer you a distinguished visiting position to research quantum mechanics or human behavior. I asked, raising an eyebrow. Both, Chen admitted. We clearly need the latter as much as the former. I considered the offer, thinking of all the other women in science who'd been mistaken for support staff. All the brilliant minds overlooked because they didn't fit expected patterns. I accept, I said finally, on one condition. We establish a mentorship program for underrepresented students in physics. Let's create some new quantum states of possibility. Agreed, Chen nodded quickly. Though perhaps we should get you a proper office first. Oh no, I smiled, patting my old sweatshirt. I'll keep my current state of superposition. It's proven to be an excellent research tool. Sarah rolled her eyes, but I caught her proud smile. She understood that sometimes the most powerful lessons came not from formal lectures, but from moments of forced self-reflection. As we left the auditorium, I noticed Amanda supervising the actual cleaning staff with a new awareness in her expression. Sometimes I reflected the most important quantum leap was the one that happened in people's minds. 6 months into my visiting position at Stanford, the changes were subtle but significant. My old MIT sweatshirt had become something of a legend. Students never quite knew whether they'd find me in formal academic attire or my comfortable lab clothes, which led to some interesting discussions about appearance and authority in science. The most remarkable transformation was in Amanda Wright. After a quantum interference demonstration, she'd thrown herself into organizing a conference on diversity in physics with unexpected passion. Dr. Patel, she caught me one morning as I was setting up an experiment. Would you believe the Nobel Committee called asking if he'd be wearing traditional Indian formal wear to the next ceremony? What did you tell them? I asked, adjusting a laser. I said they should focus on your upcoming paper on quantum entanglement rather than your wardrobe. Then I sent them your lecture notes on observer bias. I smiled, remembering her very different attitude 6 months ago. You've come a long way from handing me cleaning supplies. She flushed but held her ground. That's actually why I started the mentorship program for first-generation science students. I realized how many brilliant minds we might be overlooking because they don't fit our quantum state of typical scientists. The mentorship program had exceeded all expectations. We now had 30 undergraduate students, mostly young women and minorities, working on advanced physics projects. More importantly, they were working in their own clothes, speaking in their own voices, bringing their unique perspectives to quantum mechanics. Sarah's career had also taken an interesting turn. Her lecture series on quantum mechanics and social dynamics had become the department's most popular course. "Mom," she said during one of our shared lab sessions, "remember how you used to tell me that particles don't care about our expectations?" Yesterday, one of my students said she finally felt free to be both a physicist and herself. The department had made other changes too. Professor Chen had implemented a blind review system for research proposals, leading to a surprising diversity in approved projects. The cleaning staff were now invited to department events as guests, not workers. Small changes, perhaps, but like quantum effects, small changes could have massive consequences. One morning, I arrived at the auditorium where it had all started to find a group of students practicing their dissertation defenses. They were dressed in everything from suits to saris to hijabs to hoodies. "Dr. Patel," one called out, "we're using your quantum observation principle. Want to watch us practice?" I settled into a seat, noting how confidently they owned their space, their identity, their science. No one was trying to collapse into a single expected state. "Professor Wright suggested we focus on our research, not our appearance," another student explained. She said something about quantum superposition of identity. Amanda, now heading the department's diversity initiative, had taken the quantum mechanics metaphor and run with it. Every new faculty orientation included my vacuum cleaner story and a discussion of the observer effect in academic bias. The vacuum cleaner itself had been mounted in a display case outside the physics department, alongside my noble medal and a simple plaque. "Observer effect in action. Dr. Maya Patel, 2025. But the real victory came in small moments. A young woman in a headscarf confidently leading a quantum physics seminar. A maintenance worker joining a scientific discussion during his lunch break. A brilliant mind being noticed for their ideas rather than their appearance. The thing about quantum mechanics, I told a reporter who asked about the changes, is that it teaches us reality is more complex than our classical observations suggest. The same is true of people. When we stop trying to force everyone into classical states of existence, we discover whole new dimensions of possibility. Sarah found me later in my lab, still wearing my faithful old sweatshirt while working on cutting-edge quantum computations. "You planned all this, didn't you?" she asked. "That morning with the vacuum cleaner, you knew exactly what you were doing." Like any good quantum experiment, I replied, adjusting my equipment. I simply created the conditions for observation and let nature take its course. She laughed, pulling on her own well-worn lab coat. "Mom, you're still impossible." "No," I corrected, watching another generation of diverse young scientists fill our halls. "I'm just in a superposition of possibilities, just like physics should be."